The silence in the diplomatic chamber felt heavy as Rebecca Hayes adjusted her formal uniform one last time. Through the massive viewport, the alien space station grew larger with each passing moment, its crystalline structures catching starlight in ways that made her eyes water. 3 years of preparation had led to this single day, and humanity's future hung in the balance of the next few hours. "Ambassador Chun, are you ready?" Rebecca asked, turning toward the distinguished man who had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. His gray hair was perfectly styled, his diplomatic robes pristine, and his expression calm despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. David nodded slowly, his hands steady as he gathered the carefully selected materials that would represent all of human civilization. Classical music compositions, poetry collections, philosophical treatises, and artistic masterpieces filled the transport cases. Every item had been chosen to present humanity as a peaceful, cultured species. Worthy of joining the Galactic Federation, the docking procedure began with a series of gentle vibrations through the ship's hull. Outside, strange alien vessels of impossible beauty surrounded their modest diplomatic craft. The Federation had been watching humanity for decades, intercepting radio transmissions and studying human culture from afar. What they had seen impressed them enough to extend this unprecedented invitation. "Dr. Petrov, final status report?" Rebecca called to the xenocultural specialist who had become humanity's expert on alien psychology despite never having met an actual alien. Anna looked up from her datapad, pushing a strand of brown hair behind her ear. "All cultural materials are prepared according to Federation protocols. We have removed anything that might be considered aggressive or violent. Our presentation focuses entirely on human achievements in art, music, literature, and philosophy. The aliens appear to value peaceful coexistence above all else." The airlock cycled with a soft hiss, and suddenly they were breathing alien air. The atmosphere felt slightly thinner than Earth normal, with a faint metallic taste that reminded Rebecca of mountain air after a thunderstorm. The corridor beyond stretched in graceful curves, its walls embedded with softly glowing panels that pulsed in rhythm like a gentle heartbeat. Their escort appeared as they stepped through the threshold. The being stood nearly 8 feet tall, with translucent blue skin that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Its movements were fluid and graceful, and when it spoke, the words came through a translation device that rendered its voice in perfectly accented English. "Welcome, representatives of humanity. I am Counselor Thane of the Alteran Council. We have waited many cycles to meet you in person." David stepped forward with practiced diplomatic grace. "The honor is ours, Counselor Thane. Humanity is grateful for this opportunity to join the galactic community." The walk to the main conference chamber revealed the true scope of the space station. Dozens of different species moved through the corridors, their forms ranging from insectoid creatures with gossamer wings to massive beings that seemed to be made of living stone. Despite their vast differences, all moved with the same peaceful purposefulness that marked truly civilized societies. The conference chamber itself took Rebecca's breath away. A vast dome of transparent material offered a view of the surrounding starfield, while the interior was arranged in concentric circles that allowed every being present to see and hear clearly. Representatives from 12 different species waited in respectful silence as the human delegation took their designated places. Thane's voice carried easily through the chamber as he began the formal proceedings. "The Galactic Federation has observed your species for many of your years. Your transmissions have reached us across the void, carrying messages of hope, beauty, and wisdom. Today we gather to determine if humanity is ready to join our peaceful alliance." David activated the first holographic display, and the chamber filled with the sound of a Bach concerto. The aliens listened in rapt attention as human music washed over them, their various forms of expression showing clear appreciation for the mathematical precision and emotional depth of the composition. When the music faded, David began his carefully prepared presentation. "This is but one example of human artistic achievement," he said, his voice carrying the weight of years of preparation. "Throughout our history, humans have sought to create beauty, to understand our place in the universe, and to lift each other toward higher purposes. The next display showed human paintings, sculptures, and architectural marvels. The aliens observed images of the Sistine Chapel, ancient Greek temples, and modern concert halls with obvious fascination. Several species exchanged rapid communications in their own languages, their excitement palpable even through the translation barriers. Poetry came next, with David reciting verses about love, loss, hope, and the search for meaning. The words seemed to resonate deeply with the assembled beings, many of whom had their own rich literary traditions. When he spoke of human philosophy, of concepts like justice, mercy, and the categorical imperative, the aliens leaned forward with intense interest. "Your species shows remarkable wisdom for one so young," commented a crystalline being whose voice sounded like wind chimes. "We have rarely encountered such depth of thought combined with artistic sensitivity." Anna felt a surge of pride as the presentation continued. They had chosen well, focusing on humanity's greatest achievements while carefully avoiding any mention of conflict, war, or violence. The aliens clearly valued peaceful coexistence and philosophical development above all else. Hours passed as the cultural exchange continued. The aliens shared their own achievements, displaying technologies that seemed like magic and art forms that challenged human perception. Yet through it all, they kept returning to questions about human compassion, human creativity, and human potential for peaceful cooperation. "We are particularly impressed by your species' capacity for self-sacrifice," Thane observed as the formal session drew to a close. "Your literature and history speak of individuals who gave their lives to protect others, who chose suffering rather than cause harm to innocents. This suggests a moral development that would benefit our entire Federation." David felt the moment building toward its climax. "Counselor Thane, members of the Federation, humanity stands ready to contribute to galactic peace. We offer our creativity, our compassion, and our dedication to the welfare of all sentient beings." The Alien Council exchanged rapid communications, their various forms of expression showing clear deliberation. Finally, Thane rose to his full impressive height. "The Galactic Federation extends preliminary membership to humanity. We propose a cultural exchange program to begin immediately, followed by full integration protocols within 1 standard year. We believe your species will make excellent peacekeepers and mediators for our alliance." Rebecca felt her heart race as the implications sank in. Humanity had been accepted not just as members, but as potential leaders in galactic diplomacy. As the ceremony concluded and formal agreements were signed, none of the humans could have imagined how dramatically their carefully crafted presentation had shaped alien expectations, or how dangerous those expectations might prove to be. The morning sun cast long shadows across the university campus as Dr. Anna Petrov watched her alien guests emerge from their transport vehicle. 3 months had passed since first contact, and now 20 representatives from various Federation species had arrived on Earth to begin the cultural exchange program. Their diverse forms created an almost surreal scene against the familiar backdrop of human architecture. Leading the group was Counselor Thane, whose blue translucent skin seemed to glow softly in the early light. Behind him walked beings that challenged every assumption about life in the universe. A creature that resembled a walking tree with silver bark, another whose form shifted like liquid mercury, and several others whose anatomy defied easy description. "Welcome to Earth," Anna said, stepping forward with practiced diplomatic grace. "We have prepared a comprehensive tour of human civilization that we hope will deepen our mutual understanding." The tour began at the university's medical center, where human doctors worked around the clock to save lives and ease suffering. The aliens observed with fascination as surgical teams performed delicate operations, their movements precise and coordinated. Dr. Martinez, the chief surgeon, explained the human concept of medical ethics as he demonstrated a procedure to repair a child's heart defect. "In human medicine, we believe every life has equal value," Martinez said, his hands steady as he worked. "We will exhaust every possible treatment before accepting defeat, regardless of a patient's age, status, or ability to pay." The tree-like being who had identified himself as Elder Root rustled his silver leaves approvingly. This dedication to preserving life, even at great cost to yourselves, shows remarkable spiritual development. Our own healing traditions share similar principles. From the medical center, they moved to an elementary school where human children learned and played with innocent enthusiasm. The aliens watched in wonder as teachers patiently guided young minds through basic concepts of mathematics, literature, and science. During recess, they observed children sharing toys, helping fallen friends, and resolving disputes through conversation rather than conflict. Nira, the young Alteran scholar who had volunteered for this extended cultural study, found herself particularly drawn to the children's natural empathy. When a small girl scraped her knee during play, she watched as other children immediately rushed to help, offering comfort and assistance without any adult prompting. "Your young ones show instinctive compassion," Nira observed to Anna as they watched the playground scene. This suggests that kindness is truly fundamental to human nature. The afternoon brought visits to art museums and concert halls, where the aliens experienced humanity's creative achievements firsthand. They stood before Van Gogh's swirling masterpieces, listened to live orchestral performances, and studied sculptures that captured human emotion in stone and metal. Each piece seemed to reinforce their growing conviction that humans were a deeply spiritual and peaceful species. At the Natural History Museum, the aliens learned about human efforts to preserve and protect other species. The conservation exhibits showed decades of work to save endangered animals, restore damaged ecosystems, and reverse environmental damage. Dr. Williams, the museum's conservation director, spoke passionately about humanity's responsibility to protect the planet they shared with countless other life forms. "We have made mistakes in our past," Williams admitted as they stood before an exhibit about extinct species. "But we have learned from those mistakes. Today, humans work tirelessly to undo the damage and ensure that future generations inherit a healthy world." The Mercury-like being, whose name translated roughly as flowing thought, rippled with apparent emotion. To admit error and work to correct it requires great wisdom. Many species never achieve such self-awareness. Evening brought cultural performances that showcased human artistic expression. Ballet dancers moved with impossible grace across the stage, while symphony orchestras filled concert halls with music that stirred alien emotions they had no names for. Poetry readings revealed the depth of human introspection and the beauty they found in simple moments of existence. During a private dinner, Counselor Thane shared his impressions with Anna and the other human hosts. "In all our years of contact with various species, we have rarely encountered such a combination of creativity and compassion. Your people seem naturally inclined toward peace and understanding." Anna felt a flush of pride, but also a nagging worry that she pushed to the back of her mind. The human delegation had worked hard to present their best face to the galaxy, carefully curating every experience to emphasize humanity's positive qualities. Certain aspects of human history and culture remained carefully unmentioned. The aliens spent their evenings studying human literature and philosophy, delving deep into works that spoke of love, sacrifice, and the search for meaning. They read poetry about redemption, novels about characters who chose compassion over revenge, and philosophical treatises about the nature of justice and mercy. "Your Shakespeare writes of forgiveness even after terrible betrayal," observed a crystalline being whose faceted form reflected the room's lights in prismatic patterns. This suggests a profound understanding of the complexity of moral choice. Over the following days, the pattern continued. The aliens visited hospitals where humans cared for the sick, schools where knowledge was freely shared, and research facilities where scientists worked to better understand the universe. They observed human families with their bonds of love and mutual support, and community organizations dedicated to helping those in need. Each experience reinforced their growing belief that humanity represented a new hope for galactic peace. Here was a species that had apparently transcended the violent struggles that marked the development of most civilizations. The humans seemed to have achieved a level of moral evolution that made them ideal candidates for mediating disputes between other species. However, the aliens began to notice small oddities in their cultural education. Certain historical periods were glossed over quickly, museum exhibits seemed to have gaps in chronological coverage, and some human reactions to innocent questions struck them as evasive. When Elder Root asked about competitive sports, the humans showed them only non-contact activities like tennis and swimming, avoiding any mention of boxing, wrestling, or team sports where physical confrontation was common. "Your recreational activities seem remarkably gentle," Root observed during a visit to a golf course. "Do humans never engage in more vigorous competition?" Anna's hesitation lasted only a moment, but several aliens noticed it. "We believe in healthy competition that builds character without causing harm," she replied carefully. "Humans prefer activities that challenge the mind and spirit rather than promote aggression." Nira found herself increasingly curious about these small mysteries. During her free time, she began exploring human information networks, initially seeking more examples of the art and literature that had so impressed the Federation Council. Her naive searches led her to documentaries about human achievements, scientific discoveries, and cultural milestones. The algorithm that guided her explorations began suggesting related content, slowly expanding her view of human civilization beyond the carefully curated tour she had been receiving. She discovered references to historical events and cultural phenomena that had not been mentioned in any of their official briefings. As the exchange program entered its second month, the aliens' reports back to the Federation grew increasingly enthusiastic. They described a species of remarkable gentleness and wisdom, perfectly suited to serve as peacekeepers and moral guides for the galactic community. Their recommendations would soon lead to formal proposals for humanity to take on significant responsibilities in maintaining interstellar harmony. None of them yet suspected that their hosts had shown them only half the truth about human nature, or that the other half would soon shatter every assumption they had made about Earth's newest children. Nira settled into her quarters late in the evening, her mind still processing the day's cultural immersion. The humans had shown them another art museum. This one focused on what they called romantic literature, where stories of love and devotion filled entire libraries. Her tablet glowed softly in the darkened room as she continued her private exploration of human creativity. The entertainment network's algorithm had been learning her preferences for weeks now, tracking her interest in human storytelling and emotional expression. Tonight, it suggested something new, a category labeled historical drama, that promised to show how humans remembered their past through theatrical recreation. The first selection appeared innocent enough. A movie called Titanic began with sweeping music and beautiful cinematography of a massive ship. Nira watched with growing fascination as the story unfolded, showing human social customs, romance, and the complexity of their class systems. The love story between the main characters reinforced everything the aliens had learned about human emotional depth. Then the ship began to sink. What followed challenged every assumption Nira had formed about human nature. As the vessel tilted and broke apart, she witnessed scenes of both breathtaking selflessness and shocking selfishness. Some humans sacrificed their lives to save strangers, while others trampled the weak to reach safety. The complexity of human behavior under extreme stress revealed layers of their species she had never imagined. The algorithm, interpreting her continued viewing as interest, began suggesting similar content. Apollo 13 showed humans working desperately to save lives in the void of space. The impossible depicted families struggling to survive a natural disaster. Each film revealed aspects of human crisis response that the cultural exchange program had never mentioned. Her curiosity fully awakened, Nira began searching more actively. She discovered categories labeled action and adventure that featured humans in conflict situations. The first action movie she selected was Die Hard, and within minutes she was watching a single human engage in combat against multiple opponents, using tactics and weapons that demonstrated shocking sophistication in violence. The revelation hit her like a physical blow. These were not primitive creatures driven by instinct, but intelligent beings who had refined the art of conflict to an extraordinary degree. The human in the movie displayed strategic thinking, adaptability, and a level of controlled aggression that spoke to generations of evolutionary development as predators, unable to stop herself. Nira delved deeper into human action cinema. The Matrix showed humans fighting machines with balletic grace and devastating efficiency. John Wick revealed the existence of entire underground societies built around professional violence. Mad Max depicted humans surviving in post-apocalyptic wastelands through pure ferocity and cunning. Each movie shattered another piece of the peaceful image humanity had presented to the Federation. These were not the gentle philosophers and artists she had been studying. These were apex predators who had somehow learned to disguise their true nature behind a veneer of civilization. The historical war films proved even more disturbing. Saving Private Ryan opened with a sequence depicting human warfare that left Nira physically sick. The D-Day landing showed thousands of humans charging into almost certain death, driven by abstract concepts like duty and patriotism. The level of coordination, sacrifice, and systematic violence exceeded anything in Alterran experience. Braveheart revealed humans engaging in large-scale tribal warfare with weapons designed specifically to cause maximum damage to their own species. 300 showed warriors who seemed to embrace death in battle as a form of spiritual transcendence. Apocalypse Now depicted the psychological toll of extended warfare on human minds, yet also showed their ability to adapt and function in such extreme circumstances. Meanwhile, other members of the alien delegation were making their own accidental discoveries. Elder Root, while researching human environmental adaptation, stumbled upon survival shows that featured humans thriving in hostile environments through skills that seemed impossibly advanced for a peaceful species. The Crystalline, being named Prism, discovered human competitive sports while looking for examples of cooperative recreation. Mixed martial arts, boxing, and American football revealed humans engaging in ritualized combat for entertainment. Their audiences cheering as participants inflicted controlled violence upon each other. Flowing thought encountered first-person shooter video games while studying human problem-solving abilities. The discovery that humans created elaborate simulations of warfare for recreational purposes, complete with realistic tactics and weapon systems, suggested a species obsessed with conflict at the deepest psychological level. The most disturbing discovery came when several aliens simultaneously found human military documentaries. Programs about special forces training, strategic bombing campaigns, and naval warfare revealed the true scope of human martial development. These were not accidental expressions of primitive aggression, but carefully designed systems for projecting organized violence across vast distances and complex battlefields. The aliens began meeting in secret, sharing their discoveries and trying to understand the implications. The humans they had been studying during the day seemed genuinely peaceful and compassionate, yet the entertainment and historical records revealed a species capable of breathtaking brutality and systematic destruction. How can the same beings who create such beautiful music also develop weapons capable of destroying entire cities? Prism asked during one of their clandestine discussions. Perhaps we have misunderstood their true nature, Elder Root suggested, his silver leaves rustling with agitation. What if their peaceful behavior is learned rather than instinctive? Nira found herself unable to sleep, spending entire nights consuming human military history. She learned about the Mongol conquests, the Roman legions, medieval siege warfare, and the devastating conflicts of the 20th century. Each era revealed new innovations in human warfare, from the simple tactics of ancient battles to the complex logistics of modern military operations. The nuclear weapons proved particularly terrifying. Humans had developed the capability to destroy their entire planet, had actually used such weapons against their own species, and yet had somehow chosen to step back from total annihilation. The restraint implied by this decision was almost as frightening as the weapons themselves. What began to emerge was a picture of humanity far more complex than anything the Federation had encountered. These were beings capable of both transcendent compassion and systematic cruelty, often within The same individual. They could create sublime art while simultaneously perfecting the science of war. The aliens realized they had been shown only one face of human civilization, carefully curated to appeal to Federation values of peace and cooperation. The question that haunted them all was simple. If humans had hidden this aspect of their nature during first contact, what did that say about their true intentions? As the cultural exchange program continued its daily routine, the alien delegates found themselves watching their human hosts with new eyes. Every gesture of kindness now carried the weight of potential deception. Every smile might hide the calculating mind of a predator. The discovery that would change everything was still ahead of them, but the foundation had been laid. The aliens now knew that humanity was not what it seemed, and the implications of that knowledge would soon force them to confront truths about their own galaxy that they had been desperately trying to avoid. The confrontation came at dawn, with Counselor Thane's towering form silhouetted against the window of Dr. Anna Petrov's office. His usually serene demeanor had been replaced by something harder, more focused, and Anna felt her carefully maintained. Diplomatic composure began to crack under his penetrating gaze. "Dr. Petrov," Thane said, his translated voice carrying an edge she had never heard before, "we need to discuss certain discoveries my delegation has made about human culture." Anna's heart sank as she recognized the inevitable moment she had been dreading since the exchange program began. Behind Thane, she could see other members of the alien delegation gathered in the hallway, their various forms of expression all conveying the same mixture of confusion, betrayal, and something that might have been fear. "Of course, Counselor," Anna replied, struggling to maintain her professional tone. "What specific aspects of our culture would you like to discuss?" Nira stepped forward, her blue skin seeming to pulse with agitation. In her hands, she carried a datapad displaying frozen images from human entertainment media. "We have discovered that your species possesses an entire cultural dimension that you have not shared with us. Films, games, literature, and historical records that reveal capabilities and tendencies entirely at odds with what you have shown us." The weight of deception settled heavily on Anna's shoulders. 3 months of carefully curated presentations, of showing only humanity's gentlest face, had crumbled in the face of alien curiosity and human technology's inability to completely hide the truth. "I think," Anna said slowly, "that it would be best if I contacted Ambassador Chun and Captain Hayes. This conversation requires their presence." An hour later, the full human diplomatic team faced the alien delegation in the university's largest conference room. The atmosphere was tense, charged with the electricity of a relationship on the verge of fundamental change. David Chen sat at the head of the human delegation, his expression grave as he prepared to address the crisis that threatened to destroy everything they had worked to achieve. "Counselor Thane, members of the Federation delegation," David began, "we acknowledge that you have discovered aspects of human civilization that we did not include in our cultural presentation. We are prepared to discuss these discoveries openly and honestly." "Discuss?" Elder Root's leaves rustled with what Anna was beginning to recognize as agitation. "You have deliberately concealed the true nature of your species. The beings we observe in your entertainment media bear no resemblance to the gentle philosophers you have presented to us." Captain Rebecca Hayes stood, her military bearing now apparent in a way she had previously suppressed. "You are correct. We have shown you only part of who we are. The question is whether you are prepared to see the rest." The decision once made came with a sense of liberation. The human team had prepared for this possibility, though they had hoped to avoid it. Now, faced with the collapse of their careful deception, they chose the path of complete honesty. "We will show you everything," David announced. "The full scope of human history, our capacity for both creation and destruction, and the reasons why we chose to present ourselves as we did." The presentation that followed lasted 12 hours, with breaks only for necessary biological functions. The humans began with prehistoric warfare, showing how early humans had fought with stone tools and simple tactics. They progressed through ancient battles, medieval warfare, and the industrial conflicts that had reshaped their world, the aliens watched in horrified fascination as human military innovation unfolded before them. The Roman legions with their disciplined formations and siege engines, the Mongol horsemen who had conquered half their known world through superior mobility and psychological warfare, the medieval knights whose armor and weapons represented centuries of refinement in personal combat technology. Your species has been engaged in continuous warfare for its entire recorded history. Observed flowing thought, its mercurial form, rippling with disturbance. Every generation has developed new methods of inflicting death upon your own kind. Yes, Rebecca acknowledged without flinching, but observe what else we developed alongside our weapons. The presentation shifted to show how warfare had driven human innovation in medicine, engineering, communication, and logistics. Military hospitals had pioneered surgical techniques that saved civilian lives. Engineering challenges of moving. Armies had led to transportation advances that benefited all of society. The need to coordinate large forces had driven developments in communication and organization that revolutionized human civilization. The nuclear age brought gasps of shock from several alien species. The weapons demonstrations, the mushroom clouds rising over test sites, and the devastation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki revealed humanity's capacity for species-level destruction. You developed the ability to exterminate yourselves, Prism observed, its crystalline form refracting the light in patterns that suggested deep disturbance. Yet you chose not to use it. Why? Because, David replied, the same capacity for violence that created these weapons also created the wisdom to understand their consequences. Humans are not mindlessly aggressive. We are strategically violent when necessary and strategically peaceful when possible. The presentation moved to modern military doctrine, showing how humans had learned to wage war with surgical precision. Smart weapons that could strike specific targets while avoiding collateral damage. Rules of engagement that protected non-combatants. International laws that attempted to limit the brutality of conflict even as they acknowledged its inevitability. You have turned warfare into a science, Thane observed, his voice carrying a mixture of awe and revulsion. These are not the actions of primitive savages, but of highly intelligent beings who have systematically perfected the art of organized violence. Exactly, Anna confirmed. Human warfare is not driven by mindless aggression, but by calculated decisions made in service of larger goals. We fight not because we enjoy violence, but because sometimes violence is the only way to protect what we value. The aliens struggled to process this revelation. They had spent months studying human compassion, creativity, and wisdom, only to discover that these qualities coexisted with capabilities for destruction that exceeded their worst nightmares. How can the same beings who write poetry about love also develop weapons capable of destroying planets? Nira asked, her voice small and confused. Because, Rebecca answered, love is what drives us to protect those we care about. The greater our capacity for love, the greater our willingness to fight for it. Our weapons exist not because we hate our enemies, but because we love our friends. The final part of the presentation showed human military philosophy and the warrior ethos that had developed alongside their weapons. Concepts of honor, duty, sacrifice, and the idea that some things were worth dying for. The aliens learned about soldiers who had thrown themselves on grenades to save their comrades, pilots who had flown suicide missions to protect civilian populations, and generals who had accepted defeat rather than sacrifice innocent lives. Your warriors choose death before dishonor, Elder Root observed. This suggests a moral complexity we did not anticipate. Every human has the potential to be a warrior, David explained. But we choose when and how to express that potential. The same protective instinct that drives a mother to defend her children can scale up to entire civilizations defending their way of life. As the presentation concluded, the conference room fell into heavy silence. The aliens now possessed a complete picture of human nature, one that defied their previous understanding of how intelligent species developed. They had encountered beings who combined transcendent creativity with devastating destructive capability, all wrapped in a moral framework that somehow made both aspects serve higher purposes. The question that hung in the air, unspoken but understood by all present, was simple. What did this revelation mean for humanity's place in the galactic community? The emergency session of the Galactic Federation Council convened in the deepest chambers of the space station, far from the usual diplomatic halls where pleasant discussions of trade and cultural exchange normally took place. Representatives from all 12 member species had gathered in response to the startling reports from the Human Cultural Exchange Delegation, their various forms of expression unified in displaying unprecedented concern. Councillor Thane stood before the assembled council, his blue form more subdued than usual as he prepared to deliver news that would shake the foundation of their peaceful alliance. Behind him, holographic displays showed frozen images from human military history, each one a testament to capabilities that challenged everything the Federation believed about intelligent species development. Honored colleagues, Thane began, his translated voice carrying the weight of profound revelation, we have discovered that humanity possesses martial capabilities far exceeding our initial assessments. They are not the gentle philosophers we believed them to be, but apex predators who have learned to disguise their true nature. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. The crystalline prism singers resonated with harmonic frequencies that expressed deep alarm. The tree-like rooted ones rustled their metallic leaves in patterns that conveyed existential disturbance. Even the normally placid stone speakers shifted their massive forms with what could only be interpreted as agitation. High Arbiter Zen, the eldest member of the council whose species had founded the Federation centuries ago, raised a tendril for silence. Her ancient form commanded respect from all present, and gradually the chamber quieted. Show us, she commanded simply. The presentation that followed was a condensed version of what the human delegation had shown the cultural exchange team. Battle footage, weapon demonstrations, strategic analyses, and historical documentation that revealed the true scope of human martial development. Each image, each video clip, each statistical analysis drove home the same terrifying truth. Humanity was unlike any species the Federation had encountered. They have turned warfare into both science and art, reported Elder Root, his silver bark flickering with nervous energy. Their capacity for organized violence exceeds our worst projections about aggressive species. Yet, interjected Nira, who had been granted special permission to address the council despite her junior status, they also demonstrate remarkable restraint. Beings capable of planetary destruction who choose not to use that capability suggest moral development we did not anticipate. The debate that followed raged for hours. Some species called for immediate expulsion of humanity from Federation space. Others argued for quarantine protocols that would contain the human threat while allowing continued study. A few voices suggested that humanity's deception alone warranted aggressive response. High Arbiter Zen remained silent through most of the discussion, her ancient mind processing implications that stretched far beyond the immediate crisis. Finally, she spoke, and her words carried the authority of centuries of wisdom. There is something you have not been told, she said, her voice heavy with secrets long held. Something that may change how we view this revelation about human nature. The chamber fell silent, all attention focused on the Federation's eldest leader. Zen's form seemed to grow more substantial as she prepared to reveal truths that had been hidden from most of the galaxy. For the past 50 cycles, our outer colonies have been under assault by an enemy we have kept secret from our general population. They call themselves the Devourers, and they represent an existential threat to all organic life in this galaxy. Holographic displays activated around the chamber, showing star maps with entire systems marked in ominous red. The scope of the threat became immediately apparent, with dozens of worlds already consumed, and the invasion front steadily advancing toward Federation core systems. The Devourers are a hive-mind species that consumes all biological matter they encounter, Zen continued. They convert organic material into more of themselves, growing stronger with each world they devour. Our peaceful philosophies and defensive technologies have proven inadequate against their relentless expansion. The revelation struck the Council like a physical blow. Many species had colonies in the affected regions, now understanding why communication with distant settlements had gradually ceased. The peaceful Federation had been slowly dying while its leadership searched desperately for solutions. "We have lost 17 complete star systems," Zed announced. "Our fleets retreat before every devourer advance. Our weapons barely slow their expansion. Our diplomatic overtures are ignored because they do not view us as worthy of communication. Only consumption." The implications crashed over the assembled delegates like a tidal wave. Everything they had believed about their galaxy, their security, their future, had been built on foundations that were crumbling before an enemy they could not understand or defeat. "How long do we have?" asked Flowing Thought, its mercurial form rippling with barely controlled panic. "At current rates of expansion, the Devourers will reach our core worlds within 20 cycles, Zen replied. "Unless we find a way to stop them, the Federation will cease to exist." The chamber erupted in chaos as the full magnitude of the crisis became clear. Species that had spent centuries in peaceful cooperation suddenly faced extinction, and their gentle philosophies offered no solutions to this brutal reality. It was Counselor Thane who first made the connection, his voice cutting through the turmoil with sudden understanding. "The humans," he said, and the chamber gradually quieted as delegates turned toward him. "They have spent their entire evolutionary history preparing for exactly this kind of conflict." The realization spread through the Council like wildfire. Humanity's capacity for systematic violence, their strategic thinking, their willingness to sacrifice for abstract principles, and their experience with total warfare suddenly appeared. Not as threats to Federation peace, but as potential salvation from Federation extinction. "They understand war in ways we never could," Nira added, her young voice carrying new authority. "They have fought enemies who sought their complete destruction and found ways to survive and prevail." High Arbiter Zen's ancient form seemed to straighten with something approaching hope. "The question becomes, can we convince humanity to fight for a galaxy that initially feared their true nature?" The emergency session continued for days as the Federation grappled with a complete reversal of their strategic situation. They had invited humanity into their alliance, believing them to be gentle peacekeepers, only to discover they had accidentally recruited the galaxy's most effective warriors at the moment. When warriors were desperately needed, the debate shifted from whether humanity posed a threat to how quickly they could be deployed against the Devourer advance. Military analysts who had spent careers studying defensive strategies suddenly found themselves drafting offensive plans based on human tactical doctrine. The species that had built their civilization on peaceful cooperation now faced the reality that their survival depended on embracing the very violence they had long rejected. When the Federation's formal response was finally transmitted to Earth, it carried an irony that would have been unthinkable weeks earlier. The message requested an immediate military alliance, asking humanity to assume primary responsibility for galactic defense, while other species focused on support roles suited to their peaceful natures. The human response came within hours, delivered personally by Captain Rebecca Hayes to the assembled Federation Council. Her words would be remembered for generations as the moment when humanity's true role in the galaxy became clear. "We accept," she said simply, "but on our terms." The negotiations that followed established humanity as the Federation's military arm, with complete authority over strategic planning and tactical deployment. Human commanders would lead integrated fleets while alien specialists provided technological support, logistical coordination, and intelligence analysis. It was a partnership that played to each species' strengths while acknowledging the harsh realities of their situation. The first joint Human Federation fleet departed for the outer territories within a month, carrying weapons and warriors that the peaceful galaxy had never imagined possible. The ships bore names like Vindication and Righteous Fury, reflecting humanity's understanding that sometimes the only way to preserve peace was through the systematic application of overwhelming force. The aliens who had once feared humanity's capacity for violence now watched in awe as human strategic doctrine transformed their military capabilities. Battle plans that accounted for acceptable losses, tactics that embraced calculated risks, and strategies that prioritized victory over survival represented concepts entirely foreign to species that had never faced existential threats. The irony was not lost on the human commanders who found themselves protecting the very beings who had initially been horrified by their true nature. Ambassador David Chun, now serving as liaison between human military forces and Federation civilian leadership, captured the transformation perfectly in his final report. "They invited us to join their peaceful galaxy," he wrote, "and we agreed to keep it peaceful for them." The war against the Devourers would test every aspect of human military evolution, from ancient tactical principles to cutting-edge strategic thinking. But for the first time since the crisis began, the galaxy had hope. They had found their guardians in the most unlikely place, among a species that had learned to embrace both creation and destruction as equally necessary aspects of protecting what they valued most. The Federation's greatest mistake had become their greatest salvation, and humanity's carefully hidden nature had revealed itself to be exactly what the galaxy needed to survive. The beings who had thought humans were kind had discovered something far more valuable. Humans were warriors who chose to be kind, and that choice made all the difference in a universe where kindness alone was not enough to ensure survival. As the joint fleets prepared to face an enemy that threatened all organic life, the galaxy learned a lesson that would reshape their understanding of peace itself. Sometimes the greatest act of compassion is the willingness to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. Humanity had not deceived the Federation about their nature. They had simply shown them that true strength lay not in the absence of violence, but in the wisdom to know when violence was necessary and the courage to bear that burden for others. The war for galactic survival was about to begin, and the galaxy's newest members would lead the charge with weapons forged in the crucible of human history and tempered by the moral framework that had allowed them to become more than mere killers. They were warriors in service of peace, and that made them the most dangerous opponents the Devourers would ever face.